Hey, what's up? Since quesabirria tacos are like one of the most viral foods on the internet of all time, I've avoided making this video because me providing my take to the internet has always felt like it would just be a fart in the wind situation. But then I got under the hood of the recipe, started making it, and really fell in love with it. It's a crispy tortilla filled with melty cheese, succulent braised meat, dipped into a flavorful meaty chili sauce. That's dope. The thing is though, most recipes for quesabirria on the internet are super mid. You can just look at them. They don't look that good. So I really wanted to dive in and make something that was as special as I thought this dish could be. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to nail the shreddy beef so that it's perfectly tender and juicy every single time. Then I'll show you how to avoid the pitfalls that I see a lot of people making online when it comes to cooking with Mexican chilies. Then finally, I'll show you how to put everything together into a hyper version of quesabirria that's got every aesthetic detail turned all the way up. To get started, I'll need some meat. Specifically, I've got 3 pounds of beef chuck roast. When buying your roast, make sure that there is a lot of intramuscular marbling of fat like this. This is the biggest predictor of how unctuous and rich the final meat will taste. It's very hard to take a lean chuck and make it taste melty and delicious. It just gets chalky and dry if it doesn't have a lot of marbled fat. If you can't find a fatty chuck roast, go for short ribs or a brisket point. That's the fattier side of the brisket. Now to prep this beef, I'll cut the roast into large planks that are about 2 inches or so. Next, I'll take those planks and cut them down into chunky squares that are about 2 to 3 inches on each side. Also, don't worry about trimming out the non-marbled fat in between the muscles. As the beef cooks, that fat is gonna melt into the sauce, which will help make the consomme that we dip the taco in later on much more luscious. The rendered fat picks up all the flavors from the braise and it kind of acts like a Mexican chili oil that coats everything. Next, I'm gonna slide this beef into a medium bowl. Then add in 20 grams of kosher salt and then a few long ziggies of oil, or about 3 tablespoons. From here, I'll toss the beef with the salt and the oil to get everything combined. And once the beef is all covered up, I'm gonna let it sit in the salt for 20 minutes. This will allow the salt to denature the proteins in the meat, which will allow the beef to hold onto its moisture during cooking. Another way of saying that is that it's gonna make it more juicy. From here, I'll set the beef aside, then reach up to grab the backbone of this entire dish, dried chiles. I've got 2 types here, 30 grams of guajillo chilies and 30 grams of ancho chilies. I love guajillos because they're bright, tangy, extremely fruity, and have a mild spice. Anchos, on the other hand, have a bit more of a raisiny prune flavor, and they've also got a moderate heat along with hints of chocolate, coffee, and a deep earthiness. There's probably a ton of abuelas in the comments right now blowing me up for not using cascabel chilies, which many claim are essential for birria. I understand why they would say that, because cascabels are a really beautiful chili that have some of the raisiny qualities of an ancho paired with a very unique nutty tobacco aroma. But I tried this recipe with cascabels and didn't notice a difference. There's just too many layers of flavor in the final quesabirria taco for a single chili to tip the balance that much. Cascabel chilies can also be pretty tricky for home cooks to get their hands on, so that's another strike. For me, the combination of guajillos and anchos covers most of the spectrum of dried chili flavor, and they work synergistically to give you pretty much every flavor you need for birria. Now to prep these dried chilies, I'm gonna crack off the stem, then pour out the seeds. These are tannic and bitter, and they don't have any flavor. I'm also gonna tear the chili skins into smaller chunks as I go so that they'll cook faster and puree easier. Next, I'll grab a heavy bottom pot and drop it on the stove over medium-low heat, then preheat my broiler to high. I'll check back in 5 minutes. Up top, my heated Dutch oven is ready, so I'll drop in my dried chilies and cook for 2 to 3 minutes or until they're fragrant and softened, not toasted. Dried chilies can burn really quickly over direct heat, so I'm gonna be stirring these pretty much constantly. I know they're ready when my kitchen is smelling fruity, smoky, and spicy. Be careful, people. From here, I'm gonna drop in 675 grams of water, 175 grams of rough chopped onion, and 25 grams or about 6 to 7 garlic cloves. Once in, I'll bring the pot up to a low simmer, then pop on a lid and turn down the heat to low to keep these chilies from being over boiled. Now, while that simmers, I'm gonna flip my salted beef out onto a sheet tray, then give it a quick pat dry with a paper towel to remove any excessive moisture on the outside, because that'll steam things up for the next phase. Speaking of that, phase 2 of Operation Succulent Beef is to load this sheet tray under my broiler and rip it hard for roughly 15 minutes. If you don't have a broiler that you trust, you can sear the beef on the stovetop, but I'm avoiding that because searing meat is splattery, requires a lot more attention, and since I can't fit all this beef in the pot at one time, I need to sear it in 2 batches, which adds about 10 to 15 minutes of active prep time. Back at the chili pot, after 10 minutes of simmering, the onions and garlic are softened enough to puree and the chilies have rehydrated. So I'll kill the heat, then move the pot over to the sink where I'll drain off the cooking liquid. I hate this step because washing my strainer sucks, but I did notice a significant reduction in bitterness when I added it in. Even with gentle simmering, the chili still put off a decent level of bitterness, so I think it's best to lose the cooking liquid and replace it with a fresh, more flavorful liquid in the final sauce. Okay, once drained, I'm gonna move the soft stuff over to my blender. Then I'll add in 675 grams of store-bought beef stock, 20 grams of tomato paste, 1 large chipotle chili and adobo. This brings some very direct smoke flavor and a little bit of heat that the guajillos and anchos are lacking. Next, I'll add in 35 grams of achiote annatto paste. This is not abuela approved, but it brings an indescribable earthy / savory flavor to this sauce. You can find it at Mexican grocers, international markets, or over at Jeffy Boy's discount e-commerce superstore. Next in goes 2 grams of cumin, 2 grams of coriander, 2 grams of cinnamon, 3 grams of black pepper, an 1/8 teaspoon or a tiny pinch of ground cloves, 1 gram of dried oregano, 20 grams of apple cider vinegar, 10 grams of salt, and finally a good long squeeze of agave syrup, or about 20 grams worth. From here, I'll throw the blender onto high speed and spin it up for about 2 minutes. If you don't have a good stand-up blender like this one, an immersion blender would totally work, or you could throw this in batches into a food processor. It doesn't need to be as smooth as baby food, but it does need to be saucy and free of chunks like this. Ooh. Dude, that is deeply fruity. This is just a world-class adobo sauce. It's gonna work for this birria really well. You could make barbacoa tacos with it, or it'd be a great marinade for shrimp or grilled chicken too. You get a little bit of smokiness from the chipotle, you get that indescribable savory piquant flavor from the achiote paste, and then just a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of vinegar here balances the whole thing out. After the adobo, I'll check back on the beef under the sizzler. It is well browned all over and there's tons of nice fondy bits stuck to the pan. Now to get those tasty roasty bits off the sheet tray and into my sauce, I'll pour an additional 200 grams of beef stock onto the sheet tray, then grab a wooden spoon and scrape things up. High quality meat drippings is another huge benefit to oven searing over stovetop searing. On the stovetop, it can be pretty difficult to sear the meat long enough without over browning the fond, making it burnt, which makes it unusable in the sauce. Okay, once the beef drips are loose and poured into the pot, I'm gonna move the beef chunks in there as well. There we go. Then I'll pour in all of my adobo puree, then submerge the meat. From here, I'm gonna drop this pot over at the stove and bring the sauce up to a simmer. Starting with hot liquid will save us about 20 to 30 minutes of total cook time, so don't skip this step. Once up to a boil, I'll pop on a lid, then throw the whole setup into a 300F oven and braise it for 2 hours while I thank Trade Coffee for sponsoring this vid. I love coffee too much. I used to drink an entire pot of coffee by myself every day until the anxiety set in. So I switched to decaf to maintain my sanity, but my favorite morning ritual is still a hot cup of coffee, just without the hundreds of milligrams of stimulants. Thanks to Trade, now I can drink a hot cup of decaf every morning that actually tastes really good. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the US, with fresh roasted coffee for more than 50 of the country's top roasters. They've curated over 450 unique roasts with tons of regular and decaf options, all sourced from local independent roasters around the country. The roast I'm currently sipping on is from Red Rooster Coffee in Floyd, Virginia. They just roasted it last week and ground it specifically for my good old automatic drip machine. I love it because it's an easy drinking, super approachable medium roast that also has just enough complexity in there to keep things interesting. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering my viewers 40% off their first order over at drinktrade.com/Brian. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/Brian for 40% off your first order. And after 2 hours of slow braising, I'm gonna pull my Dutch oven out of the oven and check for doneness. It's really hard to give an exact cook time because of the number of variables here, but for me, perfectly braised meat should not be falling apart. What we want is meat that gives under a gentle pull, but still holds itself together just a little. The meat should slowly fall apart and release all of its unctuous juices in your mouth as you chew it. If the meat is totally falling apart with no effort, it'll probably feel mushy in your mouth, and most likely it will also feel dry because all of the collagen will have melted out and the meat will have squeezed all of its juices into the sauce. Now I need to rest this meat for about 30 minutes before shredding it. So the lid goes on and I'll check back soon. 30 minutes later, the beef juices have settled into the meat and the meat has reabsorbed some of the cooking liquid. From here, I'm gonna move this beef over to a bowl so I can shred it, and I like to do that by hand. I don't want the meat to be torn down into tiny little threads here. I want to pull it apart into small chunks. This will make the meat eat like a piece of meat. If you shred it too much, it'll feel mealy or pasty when you eat it, and it won't have any distinctive meat texture. At this point, you can see how perfectly braised this beef is. It glistens like Texas beef barbecue. It's so rich, it's so beefy, and it's bathed in a deeply flavorful sauce. Also, at this point, this meat is ready to go for S-tier tacos if you're not interested in the whole quesabirria setup. Just serve on some hot and floppy tortillas with some chopped cilantro, chopped onion, and some fresh tomatillo salsa. Once the meat's broken down, it's time to make the mysterious inky consomme to dip the taco in. For that, I'll take 200 grams of my braising adobo right out of the Dutch oven and ladle it into a saucepan. Then I'll top that with 300 grams or so of store-bought beef stock. Then finally, I'll drop in a 3 to 5 gram nip of Than Bouillon beef base to shore up the beef flavor and to bring a little needed salt. Next, the pot goes on the flame and I'll bring it up to a simmer just long enough to dissolve the beef stuff into the adobo. And it's that simple. This adobo is smoky, earthy, meaty, a touch spicy, and a little bit spiced from the cinnamon and the cloves. It has like 10 distinct layers of flavor going on. It's insane. Now I'm gonna keep this hot while I build the quesabirrias. The first step there is to dip a spoon or a pastry brush into the braising adobo and then brush some onto a corn tortilla. I'm gonna flip this over now, then brush the sauce on the backside and repeat for a second tortilla. Don't brush these too far in advance though, because the tortillas will get soggy and then they'll fall apart when you go to flip them over in the saute pan. To cook these things, I'm gonna grab a nonstick pan and drop it on the stove over medium-low heat. Once hot, I'll drop my saucy tortillas into a liberal amount of hot oil, spread those around to get them lubed up, then I'll drop in a 4-finger pinch of grated Mexican melting cheese. I'm using Oaxaca cheese here, but Chihuahua would also work, or if you don't have access to the Mexican cheeses, plain old Monterey Jack could work. It's just a little bit less flavorful. Next, I'll drop down roughly 3 ounces or about 100 grams of shredded braised beef onto the cheese, making sure it's only covering half of the taco so they're easier to fold. Once loaded, I'm gonna carefully flip these tortillas over into a quesadilla shape. During this time, I'm gonna come back with my spatula to press things down and make sure the tortillas are staying super flat and in contact with the pan. This will ensure even crisping. Heat-wise, medium-low is the best temperature, or about 4 out of 10 heat. Another tip for perfect crisping is to rotate the pan a few times to make sure that the heat is being evenly distributed. This actually matters a lot. I also like to use my spatula to keep the oozing beef and cheese contained a little bit so they don't run out into the pan and leak under the tortilla. And after 5 minutes of gentle sizzling, I'll peek underneath to see how we're doing. Yeah, dude, that looks psychotic. We've got crispy cheese around the edges and a deeply browned tortilla. From here, I'm gonna flip these over and sizzle them up on the backside for another 4 minutes or until I've got a similar level of crisping on the back. Once these things are crispy, I'm gonna move them over to a wire rack so that any excessive fat that's hanging out on the outside can drip off, and this allows the crispness of the tacos to set in. Oh my Lord, look at this. Oh my God. To serve, I'll pile up the birrias onto a plate, then stream some of my hot consomme into a little dish for dipping. Oh man, I want to fill up a hot tub with this juice. This taco makes you feel like you're doing something bad and getting away with it. It's dangerously flavorful and certainly dangerous for your cardiovascular health. Now, let's taste it.
Birria! 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 It's like every single tortilla-based Mexican dish all smashed up into the same thing. Taquito, enchilada, taco, quesadilla, nachos. You got crispy fried cheese around the edge. You got beef flavor permeating the entire thing. It's in the sauce. It's inside. It's in the tortilla. It's sick.
Just a quick heads up, I designed a chef's knife last year that was really well received by you guys, so I re-upped the supply, and now the Lagerstrom 8-inch chef's knife is back in stock. It's got the form factor of a high-end Japanese gyuto, but it's made from simple, durable materials, so you can really beat it up. The link is below, I hope you try it, and I really hope you like it.